Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Skewered Universe Podcast. This is your host, Jeff, of course, and this week we got something a little bit different for you. I recently sat down with my close friend, Eddie, who I've known for years, and we kind of just had a discussion about video games, old school video games we played, old systems, kind of what we're looking at with the current generation of games and what to expect in the next generation. It was a lot of fun to record, and I hope you guys have fun listening to it. Now, on with the show. What kind of approach do you want to take? I mean, what ideas you got?
Well, when I first thought of this idea, I was just really thinking about how video games are today and how there's like some games are free to play and you got like so many microtransactions, stuff like that. And it's really making me miss the days where you bought a game and you had the whole game.
Yeah,
You know?
okay, so why don't we start from there and then we'll just kind of go naturally, because I kind of went through and made a list earlier.
Okay.
Like, what did I have growing up? What kind of games did I have? And I'm like, oh god, there's no way we could cover any of this because it's way too much. But yeah, we could do that and then touch on like the consoles we used to have growing up and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, open up, because then it'll be too loud. Sorry. Yeah. Actually, I might have to go on the balcony for this podcast. It's kind of nice outside right now. Oh, are they? Yeah, so anyways, I remember when I was really little, back in the 80s, when we were little.
Right.
And I want to say...
both of us growing up.
I want to say my first console was a hand-me-down from my cousin Mia, and it was an Intellivision.
Oh, Intellivision.
Oh,
and we kinda,
wow.
Do you remember, like, we kind of played it briefly, but I don't know if it fully worked. And I feel like we didn't kind of get the full experience of Intellivision, really. Because my cousins always get the newest consoles all the time, but I wouldn't get theirs till it was, like, worn into the ground, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think I remember you having the Intellivision, but I can't...
But we didn't, like, play it that much.
Yeah, see, and my dad... It was actually my dad's console, the Atari 2600 we had. That was his. He bought it from Sears, so that's what we had. So the Intellivision was like the generation before that.
Yeah, the 2600. I distinctly remember that commercial for whatever reason. It had like a funny jingle about the Atari 2600. Can't remember the jingle. I just remember it was a jingle, and it was stuck in my head forever. Oh god!
You know what? I might have to pull that up so I can insert it here in between our conversation.
The fun is back! Oh yes, siree! It's the 2600 from Atari. It's a video system with classics galore, from Space Invaders to cars that roar. A real hip joystick controls the screen. Solaris is hot and Midnight Magic's mean. And one more thing, it's got a special low price, under $50. $50? Now isn't that nice? The fun is back! Oh yes, siree! It's the 2600 from Atari.
I'll find it and clip it in right in this area or somewhere.
Nice.
So people can hear it and actually hear. All I remember is he got it from Sears. It was like an exclusive, like Sears release with the wood grain panel over the speakers or whatever. Had the little metal toggle switches.
Yeah.
Guaranteed there's somebody this. And you had to have the little box that you would connect to the TV with the two screws in the back.
Yep. Didn't it? I swear it took like a half hour to hook up a console back in the days. Like you had to plug into the antenna and like some other audio video jacks, and I don't know what it was, but I swear it took like a half hour back then. Maybe because we were kids.
You had that. Maybe, but I think even now not to get off track, but a couple years ago, I found all the components for our Atari 7600, which was the next one after, which still played all the 2600 games, and I got it hooked up to my HD TV.
Nice.
I was able to hook it up, kind of rig everything. I was like, oh shit, this works. And it took me between 30 minutes to an hour to get that figured out, so half an hour back in the day before we could play, yeah. But that was the days when you'd leave it hooked up to your TV all the time.
Right.
Because then you just flip it over to channel 3, turn on your console.
And then remember there was like this thing where if you had a console hooked up to your TV, it like kind of messed up the picture. Do you remember that? It would almost like used it too much, and you would play your game too much. It would start to make your TV grainy. I don't know if that was like something my parents used to tell me because they didn't want me to pick up the TV, or was it actually real?
Well, I know, like, if you left your game paused for a long time on those old tube televisions, it could burn the image into the screen.
Yeah, you get that burn.
But that's... People are listening to this going, what are they talking about? They didn't have flat screens back then? No, we had a tube TV with a curved screen.
Yeah.
Not curved display like what we have now. It bubbled out.
Right.
But that's why they told you, like, with, like, your Nintendo or your Genesis... That's why they told you don't hook it up to a big screen TV because it could burn the image into that screen and ruin your TV.
And that was back when flat screens had those big red, the red, green, and blue lights in front of them. Remember that? And you had to have the whole room dark. That was like the beginning of the flat screens. And those would really burn in bad if you left something on them. They would burn in bad.
It was really bad.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember you having a television, but I can't remember ever playing it, and I'm sure we did. At some point, I'm sure we did.
It was short-lived, to say the least. But we just were able to get like a taste of what, video games were. And between that and your dad's 2600, I think we played some Pong and some... What was that one, like, Jungle, where you, like, swung through the jungle?
Oh, my friend, you're thinking of Pitfall.
Oh, was that Pitfall? That was on the 2600, right?
Yeah. That was on the 2600, yeah.
That was probably one of the greatest games of its time. Like, when we played that, we were like, oh my god, like, this game. Remember?
Yeah. Like, for us, it was one of the first, like, action games that you had, even though there wasn't really a whole lot of action. But you're running and jumping, you're avoiding crocodiles, you're swinging over pits, and it was crazy, but we loved it. It was so much fun.
And it was at a simpler time, so back then it seemed so complex. And it was challenging.
Yeah. Oh, man, so many of these games. I remember playing Pac-Man on the Atari for hours, which looked nothing like the arcade, which we didn't know when we were growing up, because we hadn't been to an arcade yet, so... But yeah, I remember playing that for hours and just getting stuck and just like, oh, I want to get farther.
Until good old Aunt Mimi started taking us to Camelot. Then we started playing the arcade games. Yeah. And we would play, remember the original Super Mario Brothers? I think it was just Mario Brothers, right?
It was just Mario Brothers, yeah.
And that was the one where it was like the platforms. You can get that on the Switch, right?
It's available on the Switch, and it was the game that came bundled with the Atari 7800.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because when my dad upgraded his console when the 2600 stopped working, that came with it. I think it was that and like Pole Position 2 or something like that.
Now this is the part.
Racing game.
Yeah, I think it was Pole Position. This is the part where your audience goes, wait a minute, consoles came with a game?
Yeah. Like, it was pretty much standard. 1 or 2 games would come with it.
Yeah. And I think back then. Oh, I might be wrong. Did it not come with 2 controllers even back then?
Yeah,
'Cause
2 controllers.
I want to say when you got Nintendo, oh my god, we were so hyped. First of all, when you got Nintendo, it was like mind blown. And I want to say it came with Mario and Duck Hunt. So it came with a game,
Yes.
came with a gun even, and we were off and running, playing games. You didn't have to spend an additional $60 on top of your purchase, which was great.
No, because I think the original release of the NES had only I think it only had Super Mario Brothers, not the Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combo cartridge. And then they put that in later. Because I remember some people only got Mario Brothers in like several months later, I think, or something like that, or maybe the next year. I don't know.
Right.
But I remember when we got our Nintendo, our Zapper was orange and gray, and everybody else had the gray on gray. It was the light gray and dark gray. Ours was orange and gray. It was like, why is yours orange and gray? I'm like, I have no idea. Just the way it came. It's like they changed it. I don't know.
Did you get the one with that robot? Remember Nintendo actually came with a robot at one point.
Yeah, they had Rob the Robot. I did not get that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think so. I was like, wait a minute. So was that the initial console that came with the robot? Or was that later too?
It was around during the first release. It was like released around the same time. So see, that's another thing, is when the Nintendo came out, they were releasing accessories like almost right away with it.
Uh-huh.
Like Rob the Robot, you could play games with it, but as far as I know, nobody I knew ever got Rob the Robot. It was just something you saw in the magazines, like the Sears catalog or the JC Penney catalog.
Damn. During this quarantine, man, I really could use a Rob the Robot right now. All the lonely folks out there in the quarantine, they could use a Rob the Robot.
Oh yeah, because right now you could probably figure out a way to hack into it and make it your beer retrieval robot at this point.
Sync it up to your Samsung smart refrigerator.
It's like, Rob, order me some milk.
Next thing you know, ding dong.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember. Did you get the Power Glove?
I was never fortunate enough to get the Power Glove. I wanted the Power Glove so bad. And that takes me back to the movie The Wizard. You remember the movie The Wizard?
Yes. Because that was the first time that we saw like the Power Glove being used.
Yeah.
Which
and
I guess they did a lot of movie magic, but then that was the first time we ever got to see Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah, that was a huge reveal, and it was so unexpected. I don't think any movies have done that since. Have any movies revealed a game like that?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. That was huge, because nobody knew. We had heard maybe there was a new Mario Brothers game, and then the Wizard comes out and they're like, oh, by the way, Super Mario Brothers 3. Like,
yeah.
Wait, what? I'm sorry.
Talk about hashtag mind blown. We went nuts when we saw that. I remember that.
It was insane. We're like, when can we get this game? But it wasn't long after we got our hands on it.
And then I just remember being in like complete envy of the kid, because not only was it the new Super Mario 3, but the kid just beat the game in like whatever the allotted time was. They gave him like 30 minutes or something like that to beat the game. And he freaking just smashes through the game.
Figured it out. Figured where the warp whistles were, how to use the P-Wing and all this. It's like, wait, what is all this? What is he doing? How did he beat it so quick? Yeah. Well, I think it took me like 2 years before I got to the end of the game.
And see, I don't know if it's because we're older now, but the Wizard with us back then and talking with the games and all that doesn't quite seem the same as a kid growing up today with, say, Sonic the Hedgehog movie coming out. Like, it's just like on a different level, or do you think kids have like that same vibe we had?
I don't I don't think so. I honestly think that Sonic movie was probably targeted towards people our age, since Sonic hit when we were still in that mode of playing video games at such a young age.
Right.
So I'm like, I think they kind of missed with the Sonic movie. I mean, I guess people still saw it. I really don't know, because we went into lockdown not too long after it came out.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to see that one either.
I'll eventually check it out, but I don't know, like, I was like, who was the Sonic movie for? Like, The Wizard, I knew exactly. I was like, that's a movie for me when I was a kid.
Exactly.
I was like, that's what I want to watch.
Yeah.
It's like, so Sonic, I'm like, there's not really any Sonic games anymore coming out that I know of, because there's no Sega consoles anymore. Sega is just a game company now.
Yeah.
They're not manufacturing
what?
consoles, they're just software.
For Nintendo to have their game in a movie like that was kind of like a big deal. Because I don't think Nintendo would do that today. Nintendo won't even let people stream their games. Well, I think they are now, but there was a time when Twitch was first blowing up that Nintendo was like, you're not streaming our games. We're shutting it down. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that.
They were copyright striking anything that came up Nintendo property.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you so worried about it? Microsoft is like, oh, you're just playing our game and giving us press. Okay, Sony, same thing. Yeah, Nintendo was like, whoa, hold on here. No.
In some like weird ways, I feel like Nintendo is like the Apple of video games, because Apple is very like, this is gonna happen our way, and Nintendo the same way. Like, I really wish Nintendo would release their games like on Steam or something, and that wouldn't prevent people from buying the Switch. People are still gonna buy the Switch, but if you could play Nintendo games on the computer, that'd be cool too. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of an emulator, of course. I know there's emulators out there, people. I know. But to actually, like, purchase, like, new Switch games directly through Steam via a Nintendo launcher, whatever, you know?
Yeah, all they'd have to do is say, okay, you can buy the games through Steam. You can link it to your Nintendo account on your PC. And then since Nintendo and Microsoft have that kind of partnership going on, where if you want to play Minecraft on your Switch and your friend is on Xbox, you guys can play together. All they'd have to do is say, hey, well, if you have your Microsoft account, you can pick up where you left off on your Switch, because we'll just integrate that service. And so somebody could be playing, whatever on their PC, and then like, oh, I'm going to go somewhere in the car with friends, so I'm not driving. I'm going to grab my Switch and pick up my game.
Yeah. And not to get too ahead of ourselves, but cloud gaming is definitely going to be a thing. We'll definitely come back around to that, because that's a whole other topic I definitely want to discuss. But
definitely.
What do you think? Do you remember the game Ghosts and Goblins on Nintendo?
I remember the title back in the day, but I never played it until just a couple years ago.
That game for me was like, that was one of the games that started to really get more into the graphics, and it kind of had that like spookiness about it, and it was just like a fun game.
Right.
And then you start to see the games evolve, like Castlevania.
Oh yeah, Castlevania was what I played all the time. Castlevania I owned, and it was so hard. I could never get past a certain point.
Yeah, I don't think I ever beat Castlevania. That was a tough one.
Yeah, I've maybe gotten to like the 3rd or 4th level, and that was about it. I couldn't get any further. I'm like, I can't do this. It's like, this is too hard.
Right. Yeah, the funny thing for me was, I think I reached my peak when I beat Super Mario 3 in front of all you guys, you, Greg, and Jared, and I think Alex might have been there too. And I just remember my heart pounding. And you guys were like, oh my god, you gotta do it, come on. And I remember beating that game, and it was just like, it was so funny because we're just a bunch of 8-year-olds, and it like meant the world to us to beat that game.
And you were the first one to beat it out of all of us. You were the first one, and then I don't remember who the second one was, but I know I eventually beat it. I think Greg eventually beat it.
Yeah. Because then we all started
But yeah,
pushing
it
each other.
was like,
oh, do this, do that.
exactly. And what's funny is I've still, to this day, have never beat the original Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, you haven't beat the original?
Nope.
Oh man, we should do that one day when we hang out and just kind of run through it. And there's a couple ways to run through it, because if you remember, you can run through it with, I want to say, 2 shortcuts, jumping from world 1 to 4, and then I believe 4 to either the last world 7 or the beginning of world 8. And
I don't
you
remember
can
the
actually
second jump, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the second jump. It was either World 7 or World 8. Like, beginning of World 8, end of World 7, I want to say. Because I remember it's possible to beat it in, like, I don't know, 30 minutes or so if you do those 2 shortcuts. But if you actually run through the game...
the warp zones.
Yeah, the other warp zones. Man, that was good times. And we had the whole game from start to finish.
Yeah, and you were able to sit down next to your friend and get this, people in the same house and play 2-player games together.
Imagine that.
I know, weird, right? Like, because I used to be able to sit down and play Contra 2 players, be like, oh yeah, 2-player Contra, enter the Konami code and go for it.
Right. Oh boy, I think we might have just lost your millennial audience.
Who cares? These are people who don't remember that there was Mike Tyson's Punch Out first, and then Mike Tyson got his legal troubles, and now it's Punch Out with Mr. Dream.
Yeah, that's
Mike Tyson's
terrible.
Punch Out is still available on an emulator. You just can't find it anywhere else.
Right? Yeah, I'm so glad I got that emulator now. Unless Nintendo's listening, I do not have an emulator, Nintendo. I'm sorry.
There are no emulators. We're speaking purely on speculation of what the games might be.
I've heard. Oh, man. And then all of a sudden I want to say, who got Genesis first? I remember saving up for the Genesis. I heard about it, and I started saving up for it. And
I don't remember if it was you or Jared that had it first, but you were the only 2 that had it, because I never got a Genesis.
Yeah, I think Jared might have got it first. And Sonic was just revolutionary at that time. Like, my goodness.
Yeah. Like, I still remember Jared was the one of us for Nintendo that had the Friday the 13th video game, and none of us could figure out how to play the damn thing. We could never figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the movie games back then were just terrible as far as gameplay went. I remember struggling.
They basically had a name and just went, slap it to whatever game we can make and kind of incorporate it. Whatever.
Yeah, just basically put a Friday the 13th skin on a crappy game.
Yeah. That game.
Speaking of doing
I can never figure it out.
Yeah, I me either. But I've heard, actually this kind of take us back a couple steps a little bit, but I remember hearing that Super Mario Brothers 2 for the Nintendo was actually a Japanese port of a totally different game.
Yeah, I actually learned about this a couple years ago. The Japanese game for the Famicom was called Doki Doki Panic.
Oh, wow.
The original Super Mario Brothers 2 that was released in Japan, they said was too hard for the American audience. So they reskinned that game and released that as Super Mario Brothers 2. And then later on they released... Yeah, like, I think it was for the Wii U, or maybe even the Wii Virtual Console, they released Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels, and that's the original Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's really weird. But that's why Super Mario Brothers 2 has that weird, non-linear story compared to everything else, where it's like, who are these other characters? What's going on here?
Yeah,
That's
Super
why
Mario
it
Bros.
was so
2
weird.
sticks out like a sore thumb, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still had a lot of fun playing it. Because I remember you had it, and I'd come over and we'd play it. But it's like,
Yep.
why is this different? Where's the Mushroom Kingdom? Where's King Koopa and all the Goombas and all that?
But I feel like it wasn't really too Well, it was noticeable, but I guess when Super Mario 2 came out and we were playing it, and we just thought, okay, well, this is a new Mario 2. It's got new characters. Cool. But then when Mario 3 came out, and then it was back to the Mario 1 characters, then it was like, wait a minute. Now that's when Mario 2 was really sticking out. And it's like, what the heck was going on here? Like, what did they do?
Yeah. It was like, did they try something and it just didn't work? But I think in the game story, it was Mario was dreaming, and this was all a dream he had, was what was going on in Mario 2. I'm like, okay, well, alright, because I saw videos of somebody beating the game, and they're like, oh, it was all a dream. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then we come to find out years later, oh, we just reskinned the different game because we weren't going to give them too hard of a game to play in the U.S. Like, hey, eventually we would have figured it out.
Eventually, yeah. Well, back then we had Nintendo Power Magazine. That was back when magazines were relevant. And we would actually subscribe to those magazines, and we would wait for them to get to our door. I remember, like, in the summer, we'd be hanging out in the summer, riding our scooters, and then when the mailman or the UPS guy would come around and one of us had ordered something, it was always, like, waiting for a magazine or some kind of memorabilia of some sorts. And then we actually looked forward to getting that magazine, and we would put those cheat codes in.
Something you sent away for either on the inside of the instruction manual in the game box for Nintendo or Sega.
Yeah.
Or I think you were given like a free 6-month subscription when you bought a Nintendo to Nintendo Power Magazine or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting a few of those and being like, oh my god, look at this new game coming out. Or, oh, it's got cheat codes for this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know how we ever stumbled upon that code for Contra, the Konami code, up, down, left, right,
BA start. The infamous
I don't know
code.
how we ever learned that. As far as I know, it just kind of happened. One of us found it out, and then we all learned it, and it stuck with us.
Yeah. And that's it's funny because I don't know if you know, but Xavier Woods, he has a channel on YouTube called Up Up Down Down.
Up Down Down. The first time I saw it, I was like, okay, I know exactly what you're referencing.
Exactly. I was like, you know what? Now's the chance. We're gonna come out with our channel, Jeff. BA Start.
Yeah, because left, right might sound like we're some kind of weird political cast.
Some kind of left-wing wacko co-host.
Like, no, we're video games, I swear.
Oh, man. Actually, have you ever thought about filming your podcast on YouTube? That would be interesting.
You know, I've thought about doing it for some podcasts, like maybe some one-offs or something, kind of do a video thing.
Yeah.
Like if we ever decide to, and we're brainstorming while we record, I don't even care. People can hear this. If we decide to do the original Super Mario Brothers, we could always try and set that up to film.
Yeah, that would be cool. We could do like a continuation of this.
Yeah, definitely. I'm down for that. Did you have a Game Boy, or did you just jump right to Game Gear? I want to talk a little bit about those handhelds.
Oh, definitely. So for Game Boy, I never had a Game Boy, and I'm still mad at my parents to this day because my dad said, this is my dad's excuse for not buying me a Game Boy. He said that it was gonna ruin my eyes. He's like, you can't stare at that little screen all day. You're not gonna do it. We're not gonna buy you a Game Boy. And he would never buy me a Game Boy because of that. And I was so envious of you and your Game Boy. You and Greg had your Game Boys. I had other kids from school were like sneaking their Game Boys in their backpacks and playing them during class. And to me, at that time, thinking about playing a game on the go was just the most insanely cool idea ever.
Yeah,
You know?
because before that came about where you could switch cartridges, you just had those little cheap handheld Tiger electronic things.
Tiger LCDs, yes.
Yeah. Those were man, those were bad. Like, we were too young to realize it. We're like, oh, okay, we'll play this. Now we're like, why did I play that? That was awful.
I think the best one was that football one.
That was probably the best one. That was probably the best one.
Remember, it had a little stadium around it too.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a little electronic, had the little red blips on the screen.
Yeah.
My dad had a baseball version of that too.
Oh yes, and I think I had like a golf one at one point. We went through quite a bit of those little Tiger LCDs. And then the Game Boy crushed them all.
Game Boy comes along and it's like, hey, it's not a color screen, but you got all these games and you can take it on the go.
Yeah.
And then Sega's like, what do you mean it's not a color screen? Here's the Game Gear. God damn it.
Yeah. And that's how I think that's how I finally convinced my parents. I think I want to say I ended up buying the Game Gear, but they were finally okay with it because when they saw the Game Gear, they were like, okay, it's got a little bit bigger of a screen, it's in color. I'm not sure what the logic was totally, but I was like, okay, whatever. If you guys are cool with it, I'm getting it. And I finally was able to get it.
It had a bigger screen. It had better sound. It was in color. And I think, and I don't know if you had this accessory for it, but it came with a TV tuner, so you could watch TV on it.
I remember the TV tuner. I did have that.
Okay, you did have it. That's why I knew about it. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The TV tuner.
That's how I knew you did have it.
Definitely wasn't the greatest. It was definitely like, early cutting edge technology when that TV tuner came out. So you only got like, I want to say for whatever reason, channels 2 and 4 didn't come in too great. 2, 4, and 5, but like 7, 9, and 11, and 13. So what's that? ABC, KCAL, Fox, and KCOP. Those are the only ones that came in like really good. And 2, 4, and 5 were just like, we don't really want to cooperate with this TV tuner you got.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of standard for those at the time, because Sony had their little portable TVs that you could get.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, Sega was kind of cutting edge right there, because they're like, hey, you want to watch TV? You want to play your video games? Just buy this accessory, clip it in. You got TV. You can watch your cartoons in bed on the weekend if you don't have a TV in your room.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what? I think now we have TV on our phones and everywhere else. Like, Sega was kind of the precursor to that with the Game Gear.
It was. In a way, all these handhelds kind of were the precursor for the iPhone.
Yeah. You're able to play games on the go. Game Boy, the Game Gear.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. They had to. It was like how the Walkman it was for music now. That's how portable video games were then for games now.
Yeah. And I freaking swear, I remember being a kid saying, I wish this Walkman could play any song I wanted by just like entering it or something, or having a little device that just played whatever song you wanted or play any game you wanted to play. And then all of a sudden, boom, years later, here comes the iPod.
Yep. See, this is kind of branching into the like old nostalgia technology. Let me try and reword that again, and I'm not going to edit this out. It's like nostalgia of old technology along with the video games. So it's kind of, but it kind of encompasses everything.
It really does.
Yeah, I remember you playing Columns on your Game Gear.
Yes.
And Sonic the Hedgehog.
When
it was funny enough, I actually bought the. But
chewing so much.
Oh, I did? I'm sorry. When
No,
I played
you're good.
Columns,
You're good.
I always felt like it was the lesser version of Tetris, though. I'm like, luckily it looks really cool because I feel like I wanted to, you know.
It was definitely like, well, Nintendo's got Tetris. We're gonna do our own thing.
Yeah, I think it was more my somewhat jealous, envious inner child because I never had a Game Boy, and I was like, oh, this Game Gear is really awesome, but damn it, this Columns game is just not Tetris. It was fun for what it was, but it wasn't Tetris. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, did you know anyone else who had a Game Gear so you could play together, like 2-player games and all that?
I only knew, only one of my friends from school had a Game Gear, this kid Alex, and I actually, we went to elementary school together. You actually might know his brother Dane. Remember Dane and Alex?
Yes.
I want to say,
Okay. Yeah.
Dane was in your grade because you and I were a grade
Yeah,
apart.
Dane was in my class. Yeah, Dane was in my class.
Yeah,
his older brother Alex. Yeah.
He had a Game Gear, and we would always talk about Game Gear. And not everybody got a Game Gear right away. He was like the only one. Everybody was still on the Game Boy.
Everyone had the Game Boy, and I don't know how it was with the Game Gear to play like head to head, but I know with the Game Boy, you had to have a link cable, and you had to connect the two Game Boys, and each person had to have the same game, so you could play head to head.
Yeah, it was the same with Game Gear. You had to plug into each other.
Okay, so you had to have that link cable so it would connect. Yeah, it's not like now where you just go online and you can play head to head with somebody.
Exactly.
We had to link our portable systems together with a cable, and then select the 2-player option. Oh man! You couldn't see the other person's screen either. I know that's hard for some people to think. You only had your screen you were looking at.
Right. And then you had, if you remember, you had the Atari Lynx. But the Atari Lynx...
the very short-lived.
Very short-lived. That's what I was just going to say. I don't remember a whole lot about the Lynx. I don't think either of us got the Lynx. I don't think any of us got the Lynx.
No. Nobody I know had the Lynx, and nobody had the Jaguar either.
The Jaguar, that was really scarce.
I remember we went into... what was the place called? I think it was... This is really going to date me because it was on... I want to say it was on Beach Boulevard. I think it was Ken Crane's Audio and Video.
Oh,
there used to be this. Yeah. It was where the T-shirt place is now. There's a T-shirt store there, but it used to be Ken Crane's Audio Video, and they sold like the big screen TVs and all the stereo equipment. I was in there with my parents, and they had one of those displays where you could play the Atari Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember trying to figure it out. I'm like, no, I can't figure this controller's too weird. This is weird. I can't figure this out. Like, there's too many buttons. Why is there a number pad? Why is it so big?
Yeah, the Atari.
But I remember seeing it. It was like
really awkward.
Yeah, it was like they were trying to keep up, but doing like too much, and it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. Do you remember if that was before or after Game Gear?
That was... was that after? Shoot. You know what? Let me see here. I have a list that I kept up in my browser of different generations of game consoles. So I can tell you right now when. The Jaguar came out in 1993. And you're probably going to hear me typing. I'm going to check the release date for the Sega Game Gear. October 6th, 1990. So the Jaguar was 3 years after Game Gear.
And then the Lynx was before that in 89 then. The Lynx was right before it. That's why it was short-lived, because the Game Gear came out a year later. And that was a 16-bit handheld console. That was it's weird how that failed, because that should have been revolutionary at the time.
Yeah. I don't know why. You know what? I think it was hard for Atari to come back after that game crash, which systematically kind of ended their reign. Because they took a hard hit during that video game crash before Nintendo came out, before Sega came out. Yep. Atari was the top of the mountain, and then that whole industry just took a hit, and Atari, unfortunately, just never was able to climb out.
Yeah, that was the
now, of course, the
game crash of 83, I think.
I believe it was 83, yeah. It was crazy to think, because I didn't even realize that it happened at the time. I didn't know anything, and we were so young.
Yeah, we were too young to really...
Oh. Then Nintendo comes out in 84, and apparently, from what I read, retailers were scared to sell the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Really?
And Nintendo had to basically guarantee, like, look, if whatever you don't sell, we will buy back. And stores were selling out once they were released.
Yeah. Yeah, Nintendo struck gold with that.
Yeah. But I remember coming over to your place and playing Genesis. I think you had Tecmo Super Bowl.
Tecmo Super Bowl? Tecmo Super Bowl was still on the Nintendo, wasn't it? Or was it Super Nintendo? Games. I had... Oh, no, wait.
You had one football game for the Genesis.
Joe Montana. It was Joe Montana Sports Talk Football.
That's what it was.
God. That was actually revolutionary for sports games. That was the first game that ever had commentary.
Yeah, I remember now. It was, once you said that, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I thought it was Tecmo. It was Joe Montana Sports Talk Football.
Wow,
oh my god.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, and it was really robotic too. The voices were really robotic, but at the same time, it was so revolutionary. It was just like so cool to us. We were like, whatever. Yeah. To hear them like commentate what you were doing. Yeah,
there was no speech in games. There was bubbles, or if you were playing a sports game, you would just hear noises. You might hear the crowd, and that was it. RBI Baseball, you hear
like a really fake crowd noise.
Yeah,
like RBI Baseball, all those noises, the crowd, and like when you hit the ball, it would be like in the crowd.
Yep,
it was so fun.
Exactly. And yet we played RBI Baseball so much, and now to see what versions of RBI Baseball are out now, they look more like MLB The Show, and they're so realistic. It's like, I remember when RBI Baseball was just these little round, faceless characters.
Yeah, little round, chubby guys.
They all look the same, just different colors.
Yep. It was funny.
They just rendered the teams in different colors to separate them.
Now it's such a complete simulation. The show is really intense. If you take full advantage of all of the features of MLB The Show, you would have to only play that game. Like it's so deep with this. I mean, and what I mean by that is if you do the career mode, so you do like where your player gets drafted, you move up, or you manage your team, and you have to worry about the player's salary caps. You have to worry about the food. You have to worry about cleaning the restrooms, maintaining the stadium. I mean, compared to what we had when we were kids, that's insane.
Yeah, because you think about it, when we put in a baseball game, whether it be in the Genesis or the Nintendo or even Super Nintendo, it was you powered it on, you figured out what teams you were going to be, and you just play the game. Yeah, now, you get into career mode, it's like, how are you going to manage your stadium? How are you going to draft your players? How are you going to negotiate contracts? It's like, can I just play the game for 5 minutes?
Exactly.
It's a simulation within a game. It's like there's still a game in there, but if you get into this certain mode, like the manager mode or whatever, it's all a simulation.
Yeah.
Which is
great for some people if that's what you really want. But I just can't imagine using all those features and still playing other games, still having time to play other games.
Yeah, I know a buddy of mine who plays MLB The Show. He'll get the new version when it comes out, and he's always right there in the manager mode. He's taking care of the stadium and drafting and making sure that he updates the concessions and lowers prices to draw in more people. I'm like, man, I wouldn't be able to handle all that. It's like, that's like a job.
Yeah, it really is. I tried it with I tried it 2 seasons ago with NHL, and it's a lot, man, and you almost feel like you can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, I think I tried it with I think it was the first iteration of the show to have that manager mode or career mode in it. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I think that was back on PS3. I was like, I can't. I just want to play as the team. Screw this. I deleted the file and said I'm never going back to that part of the game.
Oh man.
It's like I can't.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you and Greg got the Super Nintendo.
Oh, funny story about the Super Nintendo. We almost didn't get it. I'll tell you what happened. My brother Greg and I. So Greg and I, at his idea was to sneak around and see if we could find out if my parents hid presents around the house. He found the Super Nintendo under their bed. And I was like, okay, well, we can't say anything. He goes, no, we're going to not say anything. And for lack of a better term, his dumbass, when we were at the grocery store, he told one of the people bagging groceries that he looked and found the Super Nintendo. They in turn told my parents, and my parents called us out that same day and said, hey, we know you were sneaking around. Well, guess what? We're taking it back to the store. You're not getting that Super Nintendo now for Christmas.
Oh, man.
And we were both like, no, we didn't mean to snoop. It was Greg's. He's like, no, well, it was an accident. We didn't mean to find it. And this was like a couple of months before. Then fast forward to Christmas, we were both surprised because they were like, yeah, we decided to keep it because you guys actually straightened up and we're good after that. But we were so close to not getting it.
That's legit though, because it actually still was able to be a surprise. That's cool.
Yeah.
Because you at that point, you're probably certain you were like, nah. They said they were going to take it back. You probably weren't even thinking about it, and then boom.
Yeah, I was like, they took it back. We're not getting it. I don't know what we're getting. It's like, we're probably going to get socks. And then, boom. We got it on Christmas.
What title came with it? Super Mario World?
Super Mario World. You got two controllers, the system, and Super Mario World. Two controllers, people, not just one, two.
Right? Imagine that. 2 controllers and a game. Whew. Those days are long gone.
That wasn't like a special bundle where they were like, oh, here's, this bundle, we're throwing in an extra controller and a game, and it's going to be only $100 more than the regular version. No, that was how it was sold. The Super Nintendo was packaged with 2 controllers in Super Mario World. And I think it was only like $200 at the time. So you think about it, that's a steal.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting do you remember Mario Paint at all?
I remember Mario Paint, yeah. I didn't have it, but I remember that one.
We had it.
You had that board that came with it?
It was a plastic mouse pad that you would use a mouse on to try and draw and create pictures. Oh my god. It was fun, but that mouse and that mouse pad were so they were the worst. And you had to use that. You could use any other controller.
Yeah.
But And then, of course, like Donkey
And it was
Kong.
just one of those things you were willing to deal with it because it was like, oh, what I'm doing on this pad's coming up on the screen. Another amazing thing at the time.
Because at that point, we didn't have PCs weren't widely available. The only computers we really played were the Apple IIes at school. And that was really the only time where the mouse would like do what you were doing, showing on the screen. And even then, it wasn't that great.
Yeah, the latency was like a couple seconds, and you were like, "Oh."
Yeah, and we still had to put in the floppy disk and turn the little knob that plays. And then play Oregon Trail for an hour.
Oh man, the green screen. Remember that was the original Macintosh, right? The green screen.
Yep, that was the original. Yeah, those green screens on those Apple IIes, and then the Mac had like a black and white screen that was more of a regular looking interface, but yeah,
that
for
was
Mario
like
Paint,
the second or third generation has it or something.
Yeah. So for Mario Paint to be able to do all that, it had games built in. You could color, you could draw your own pictures, you could play music. It was fun. Looking back now, I'm like, yeah, I had a lot of fun playing it. I'm like, that controller interface with that mouse was bad, but we didn't know any better. We didn't know any better at the time.
Right, and at that time, that was the best there was. So it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And still, like, I never owned Star Fox, but I rented it several times. Oh,
you
it was crazy. They're like, this is the new chip. And
we played Star Fox at my house because you remember. So, my Uncle Art and Marty moved in next door to me, and she got Max a Super Nintendo, but he was still too young to play it, and so it was just collecting dust.
I remember that.
So anyways, and then she let me have it over at my house, and she only had Star Fox, and I don't remember if I bought any games for it or not. I think she only had a few games, and I just kind of played those. But Star Fox was one of them, and that game I liked that game.
Yeah, I've tried playing it on the Switch because it's in the Super Nintendo Online thing, but because the controllers on the Switch handheld are so different, I couldn't like get my hands to figure out how I was supposed to control everything. So I just kept crashing, which is not much different than how I played it back in the day when it first came out.
Yeah, that game was challenging. It was a good game.
It was. I think the biggest game for me, though, on the Super Nintendo had to be Street Fighter 2.
That game was badass.
I think we logged so many hours playing Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, and the anticipation towards that game was intense.
We heard about it, like
Power Magazine status.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, you're going to be able to play Street Fighter 2 at home. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, what did you say? At home? Because I've only played this in the arcade. What are you talking about at home?
We don't have to go to Western Arcade anymore?
Or Aladdin's Castle in the Park Mall.
Yeah, or Camelot.
Camelot.
Yeah, that was big.
I'm gonna sidetrack here for a second. Camelot is where I got addicted to pinball. Because they had that room full of different pinball machines. That was where I found my love of pinball. It was right there. Because I'd play the Terminator 2 pinball machine and the Addams Family pinball machine.
Yeah, and there's a Star Wars pinball machine.
That's so many. And then you go into the arcade.
Yeah, that was good times. Pinball, and I used to love playing skee-ball too.
Oh, skee-ball was fun. I remember in the arcade portion where all the video games were, I used to seek out at Camelot the Altered Beast arcade machine.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I loved playing Altered Beast. I think it's because I didn't have a Genesis, so it wasn't readily available for me all the time. Only if I was hanging out with you at your place, I think you had. Because I think that was
that was
one of the games.
Big Genesis game. Altered Beast was a big Genesis game. Yeah. Being able to play that at home, and that's kind of what the Genesis did for us. Is it that started to bring arcade games home.
Yeah. And it
But
really
the Super
helped
Nintendo really brought the real arcade games. Yeah.
Yeah, with the exception of Mortal Kombat, because Genesis was very faithful to the Mortal Kombat arcade game. They had the blood, they had the fatalities. The Super Nintendo version, you had to go into the settings and enable those. It wasn't just, here it is. Nintendo was like, well, we're more family friendly, so we got to put the settings in there so you can turn off the blood and make it look like sweat. And you can turn off the fatalities. Because parents were like, oh, I don't want my kids seeing somebody get their head ripped out. It's like, you realize they were playing at 7-Eleven this whole time, right? It's like they would go to the liquor store down the street or 7-Eleven and play Mortal Kombat for hours on end. They've already seen it.
Yeah.
And looking back, Mortal Kombat then, compared to the Mortal Kombat games now, they were tame.
Yeah. They're pretty gruesome now.
Now it's like, oh, you're showing me an x-ray of the guy's head getting split or his balls exploding when he gets punched in the crotch.
It's like, am I watching House of Thousand Corpses or am I playing a game?
It's insane. But I remember when Mortal Kombat came out for home release, everyone was like, oh my god, this is so great, we play Mortal Kombat at home. And then anyone who got it for Super Nintendo was like, wait a minute, where's the blood? And then we had to figure out, oh, you have to go into the settings and enable all this stuff.
And I think we got that out of Nintendo Power Magazine, too. Or one of the magazines. Maybe it was Game Pro. I remember Game Pro. That was another one.
Game Pro came along, and then there was Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Like EGM, yeah, and then it turned into EGU. Yep. Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Oh, NBA Jam. NBA Jam was another one that was really fun.
That was a classic. That is a classic.
From downtown, he's heating up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, good stuff.
Putting on big head mode in NBA Jam, you just have characters, little tiny bodies, these giant heads moving around the screen.
Yeah, I can't play any other way. I always put it in big head mode.
Yeah.
I actually, I only recently, about 9-10 months ago, got NBA Jam for Xbox. It was on there for sale, and I just grabbed it.
I have to look and see if it's available for PS4, because I don't think it's available on the Switch, but
no, they have that NBA
nice
Playground, but yeah, that NBA Playground is supposed to be like the new NBA Jam, but from what I read online is that it's just a big microtransaction after microtransaction type of game.
See, that turns me off to games. Like, not to sidetrack too much.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, they put out a game like, say, Fortnite, and it's free to download. It's free to play, essentially. But if you want to get new character packs and new skins and extra weapons, that's where it's going to start costing you, and it's not cheap. Because they're like, oh, you want to do this? Well, that's $40, and you get all this stuff. It's like, wait a minute, why didn't you just sell me the game for $60 and include this stuff?
Yeah. Like, I would much rather do that. You can spend hundreds of dollars in Fortnite. And that's crazy to think that, putting upwards of $1,000 down on a game.
Yeah. And people do it with no problem. I'm like, I don't get it. It's why now I wait. Like, when I got WWE 2K18, I didn't get it when it first came out. Because it was like, oh, if you want the bare game, it's $60. And this is all you get. What's included on the disc or the digital version, that's it. You want this extra stuff, it's going to cost you. Like, this pack is $30, and this one's $20, and then the season pass is this much. I waited to get like the Game of the Year edition later on, or the special edition when it went on sale that included all the DLC.
Yeah. It always
I did
goes
the
on
same
sale.
thing
You're
with
willing to wait.
Yeah, I did the same thing with the Spider-Man game for PS4. I waited, and then the Game of the Year edition came out with all the DLC, and I was like, well, for $30, I get everything that everybody else spent their $60 for the game and then paid all that extra for later. It's like, I get it all up front now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, even the Nintendo Wii didn't really have DLC for the most part. Everything was right there on the game disc when you bought it.
Exactly. I miss those days. I mean, DLC is great. Don't get me wrong. I love some DLC. But in certain cases where you've got to purchase DLC after DLC for $19.99 a pop, games get really expensive now.
Yeah. And God, I can't even remember where the first DLC started. I want to say it started maybe with the original Xbox and PlayStation 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't even like a lot. They were like just, oh, hey, we got this extra part of the game we decided to create for you guys. And if you want to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like the early stages of DLC, huh?
Yeah. I remember even when I had my Sega Dreamcast, which was the last Sega console ever made. It was the only Sega console I ever owned. Was the last one they ever made. And that even had online capability. You'd be able to get online with it. But there was no DLC for games like that. Like Crazy Taxi or House of the Dead 2. There wasn't DLC for those. Just here's
and there
the
wasn't
full
even
game.
like updates. Was there updates back then or no? Yeah.
If you were gonna do the online connectivity thing, they had like firmware updates for that to kind of help stabilize, but it wasn't as big as it is now. Like I don't think I ever really used the Dreamcast online. I think I tried it once, and it was so slow because it was like on an island connection, and I mean, this is still the days before broadband because we're talking. This was 98, 99.
Wow, yeah.
So
that was when you had to wait 15 minutes to get on the internet.
Yeah, or if you wanted to download a video or whatever, 2 days.
It'd be like an hour.
Nobody used the phone. Trying to download a photo. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Get off the phone. I'm downloading a photo.
Trying to watch this little video clip. It's 30 seconds. It's going to take me an hour. Oh, man. It was crazy to think. Like, you had all these game consoles, the Nintendo, the Genesis, the Sega Dreamcast, the PlayStation. Do you remember TurboGrafx-16? I never had it, but I remember it coming out.
TurboGrafx-16. I think the main character was Bonk.
Yeah, it was Bonk's Adventure. And they were all on little cards that you put in. It wasn't CDs or cartridges. They were these little, like, game cards that you would slide in.
Yeah.
Very similar to Switch cards now.
Right. But see, I kind of miss that too. Every console had, like, a mascot.
Yep. Every console, because Nintendo was obviously Mario. Sega was Sonic. TurboGrafx was Bonk. Excuse me.
Yeah,
PlayStation, it was Crash Bandicoot.
And I think that must have ended with Xbox then, huh?
Yeah, because Xbox didn't really... I mean, unless you want to count Halo, but that really wasn't a mascot.
Yeah. Not in the regard of like a Mario or a Sonic, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Xbox was more like, hey, do you want to elevate your gaming to be a little more sophisticated, a little more grown up?
Word.
I didn't even
mascots around here.
I didn't even buy an Xbox from the store. A friend of mine had it. He got tired of playing it. He goes, "You want to buy it off me for $100? I got like 5 games." And I was like, "Sure, $100. They're like 300 in the store. I'll give you $100 for it." And that's how I got my
Why
first
not?
Xbox. Was off a friend. And
That's perfect.
I kick
Give it a
myself
whirl,
every day
check it
for
out.
not keeping it. Yeah, I kick myself every day for not keeping it and not keeping my Xbox 360 that I had.
You know, I try not to think about that, but I definitely kick myself for not keeping all of my consoles. I wish out of all the
Right?
things that, because I'm not a big, I don't collect stuff, as you know. You've been in my place, you see how there's like nothing really. I don't collect stuff, so, but if I was gonna collect anything, because I'm still a gamer, you know this. So
Right.
of all the things I wish I would have saved, video game consoles would have been like, I really wish I would have saved my consoles, even if they didn't work, just to have the console itself.
Yeah, I think, and don't hold me to this 100%, but I think hacked away in my garage somewhere, I'd have to go through a whole bunch of boxes. I might still have my Super Nintendo and my original Nintendo. I might.
Ooh, nice. Did you ever get a hold of anyone?
I have the original NES Mini, but I never got a Super Nintendo Mini. I tried to get one. It said it was in stock at Best Buy, and when I called them to see, they're like, "No, we just sold the last one like 5 minutes ago."
Oh yeah.
It's like,
yeah, those things went like that was a hot ticket item.
Everyone bought them up and then was turning around and selling them on eBay, and I'm like, I'm not paying you $300 for what was listed as $80 retail.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I wish they would have let you download whatever game came out on that console, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're just going to select the 35 games for you, what we feel is best.
But what I think is going to happen now, because they're not going to make another Super Nintendo Mini. They're not going to re-release it again. I think eventually all those games that were on there are going to be released to the Switch online service for the Super Nintendo. That's what I'm thinking. They stopped doing the monthly releases for it, but I think they're just going to hit like, oh hey, here's several new games for the Super Nintendo. Here's several new games for the Nintendo.
And at some point, just have complete library.
I think at some point, probably because I think it was last year, around Christmas time or somewhere around there, or late summer, early fall, they did the Super Nintendo, which was 1 year after they released the Nintendo online virtual console thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that this year we'll get like Nintendo 64, and then maybe eventually GameCube, and then the Wii stuff, and then maybe they'll start throwing in like some Game Boy stuff and all that.
Yeah, and I don't see why not. And I see them coming out with a new generation Switch, probably within a few years. And maybe that'll have a comprehensive library of Nintendo games.
I saw rumors of Nintendo having something filed recently for like a dual screen Switch, sort of like what the Nintendo DS became.
Yeah, I did see that. I saw a little mention of that on YouTube.
Like, okay, that might be cool. Like, even if they didn't do that and they were like, hey, we're going to release like a beefed up version of the Switch, because they could even keep it in the same handheld size and still beef up the specs. We all know it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Or what if they even move to a controller screen setup? You've seen how you can actually link your iPhone to your PlayStation and hook up the controller via Bluetooth to the phone and play your games like that, as long as you're on the Wi-Fi of your console. So
I've seen that.
If they actually went to a model like that, and to where you would have the comfort of playing with a full-fledged, controller, and then you just have the whole size of the unit just be a big massive screen. That might be something they look at, considering what they're doing with the phones. You know what I mean? Having a controller, obviously they know the value in having a controller because they released a regular controller for the Switch. So they know it's there.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder if they're going to... Yeah.
I just picked up a third-party version of the Pro Controller. So I was going to get the actual Nintendo version, but it's still $70. I was like, do I want to pay $70? I know it's probably the best one to get, but so I found another one, and I found another one on Amazon. It was third party. It has the rumble feature. Think of it as kind of a hybrid between the Pro Controller and an Xbox One controller. So it's kind of the same shape as if you put those two together. It's really comfortable. I was using it earlier today, actually, before we jumped on here.
Nice.
And it was only like $34.99, and all the ratings on Amazon were like, look, it's not the best controller you can buy, but if you're looking to get one that does everything the Pro Controller does and has long battery life, this is the one you want. It's like, okay, cool. So I got that, and then I got a charging grip for my Joy-Cons. So now I have two controllers again, because the red one that I had before that I brought over to your place a few times, because of the way I was carrying it around, I kind of messed it up to where one of the joysticks had drift issues. So it was my own fault. It was my own fault. I caused the joystick drift on it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to toss it. It was a $25 wired controller. It just goes in the trash.
I remember
buy another one eventually. It was like,
I mean,
it's not worth it for me to be like, oh, hey, your controller sucks because now it's drifting. It's like, it was my own fault. It was the way I was carrying it around.
With a $20 controller, if you get a year out of it, so be it. You know what I mean? It's a $20 controller.
Yeah, now it's like, controllers are almost disposable. Not like back in the day where you take the Nintendo controller and throw it across the room and it wouldn't break. You could stomp on it, you'd throw it down, and it would smash against stuff, then you pick it up and you're like, hey, this still works. I'm still playing. Now,
I guess
now
that's why
you drop your PS4 or Xbox controller, you're like, holy shit, is it broken?
Exactly. It's so delicate nowadays, right?
Like, it only dropped a foot. Holy shit.
Well, the shortest little nothing is the one that messes your thing up.
Exactly. And actually, the PS4 controller is pretty durable because I've dropped it I don't know how many times. And everything still works just fine. The only thing that sucks is the battery life isn't nearly what it should be. But that's why they came out with the PS4 Pro controller, because that has the better battery life. I'm like, man, I can't see paying... I was even looking to get a new, or even a second PlayStation controller. They're like, oh, hey, you want one? They're still $70. I'm like, nah. Not when your PS5 is right around the corner. These should be down to like $35.
Seriously, they should be. And, they did go on sale last holiday season, and I ended up picking one up for Devin. But, they're still regular price. And it's like, come on, Sony. Like, what do you... Your new console's on the rise, which, I mean, I don't want to get ahead.
Even the Xbox controllers right now. Even the Xbox controllers right now are still regular price. I'm like, man, I can't justify paying. Especially when I don't have an Xbox. I'm like, I can't see paying that just to be able to use it on my PC. It's the only place I'm going to be able to use it.
Right.
Unless I get, the Project Cloud up there? So you can do the mobile gaming with the Xbox controller with your phone?
Yes, Project X Cloud.
So we've talked... we kind of went through the nostalgia of the old video games and how we feel like we miss sitting in the same room playing two-player games. And we miss having, the full game. You just pop in a cartridge or a CD and you play. But gaming is evolved. So you know more about Project xCloud than I do. So why don't we dive into that just a little bit here?
Oh, okay. So this Project xCloud, if you, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Xbox platform right now, but they currently have in beta the Xbox Game Pass for PC. So that allows you to play games that you can get on Xbox on your PC, as long as you've got a PC that has the power to run those games. So
right, and they get you like pick
idea
up what you left off on your Xbox and back and forth.
That feature hasn't. That feature's not available yet, but that's definitely something that is in the cards for it. And I believe at some point you're probably not necessarily going to need to purchase an Xbox console unless you just want to play it on the TV. Because with the Game Pass, it has a full platform where you can get on it, and I have it, so I'm able to play games on the PC because my computer can run them. But with the xCloud, the idea there is you're going to be streaming the game, and it's going to be run on the hardware of Xbox servers. So, which is also great because you're going to be able to play those games on a cell phone even. Because no matter what device you're using, all you're doing is streaming what is running on Xbox servers. And you'll just pay a monthly fee for that, which is not new to any of us. Monthly fees are a thing. Right. And, maybe the future of gaming is going to be where you don't necessarily have to purchase all this fancy hardware unless you're into it. I'm a big geek, so I'll probably always want to purchase the hardware, but who knows? Because now,
I'm the same
technology isn't. Yeah. And I don't think the technology is fully prepared yet. And you might be familiar with a little thing called Google Stadia that pretty much tanked.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was all cloud-based gaming.
So the technology isn't quite there yet, and Microsoft knows that, and that's why I believe that xCloud hasn't come out yet. They're still trying to work all that stuff out. Google jumped the gun, and I think they just wanted to be ahead of Xbox because they knew that Xbox was coming. Yeah. And we all know Microsoft knows how to do it.
See, that's kind of the thing. Like, Xbox kind of fell behind a little bit when Sony kind of overtook the market for a little while. And then Sony stumbled. And where they stumbled, Microsoft kind of came in and said, hey, we've reworked how the Xbox works and what you can do. Take a look at what we've done. This is for you guys, the gamers. They're like, so here's the gaming aspect of the Xbox. But if you're not a big gamer, you're just a casual guy, here's all the entertainment aspects of it. And it's basically like having a PC inside of an Xbox, housing.
Essentially it is Windows OS shy of being a PC.
I think what we're probably going to see. Go ahead.
I think probably the fear there, and I think most people might agree with me. I think probably the fear there is that people are going to just use it and not purchase Xbox games. They're going to use it and they're going to download Steam and purchase Steam games. And people are going to start to just use it as an actual gaming PC. And maybe they're afraid they're going to lose money because I know that the companies don't make money on the consoles. So they make money on the games. So people are only buying consoles. There might be something there. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I do know a little bit about the back end of business. And when it comes to consoles, the companies make little to no money on the purchase and sales of consoles.
Because the only time, really, that they can say they make money from the consoles is in that initial release, within that first, 6 to 8 months of that new console. Because then after that, when someone has it, they're not buying another one. Exactly. They're going to buy the games. So there's like, hey, we made this much off the sale of the consoles. Okay, now we got to focus on the games because nobody else is going to buy a console. Maybe here and there, someone who didn't buy it. Like, I don't have an Xbox One right now. But then I'm like, well, the Xbox, was it Series X? Is that the next one that's coming?
The Series X is the one that's coming this
Yeah, I'm
holiday.
like, well,
if it's still on track.
Do I get an Xbox One or do I wait for this? I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Do I stick with this generation, which is going to be the past generation, or do I go next gen? It's like,
right.
What do I do? Because, like I said, I don't have an Xbox, so I'm not sure what to do.
I think it'll become a little clearer to you as we get closer, because if they do announce the xCloud, and if it's readily available, you might want to invest a little bit more in your PC, because you just need a graphics card, right? And you can play some more PC games too, and then you could be able to play your Xbox games on the computer as well.
Yeah, realistically, if I get a better graphics card in this, and then if I ultimately... Well, actually, I don't have speakers on this computer anymore. I took them away because I never use them. Mm-hmm. I'm usually on my headphones or my headset anyway. So as far as audio, I'm like, I think the audio will be fine. It's the graphics that I need to really bump up the specs to be able to handle that stuff.
And if you
once I get that,
does become if xCloud becomes a solid platform, then you wouldn't need the graphics card at all. So that's gonna be the biggest benefit, and that's really gonna push sales, because now people don't have to, clunk down $1,400 even to build your own PC. Now it's still expensive.
Yeah. I mean, you can. Some people go, oh, well, I built a gaming PC really cheap. I'm like, well, then you're not going to be able to play a whole bunch of games. Because you went bargain basement for your graphics card and all this. It's like, you're really not going to play a whole lot of games. You're going to be able to play the lower spec indie games, of course. And for some people, that's all they want to play. They don't want to play AAA titles like GTA 5, or they don't want to play Fortnite on the PC. They're like, well, I play those games on my console. My PC, I just do casual indie gaming. So, well, that's fine.
Yeah,
but
that's
if you want to step
up, if that's what you need it for.
Yeah. But what I'm kind of hoping for with, and Microsoft might do it because they seem to listen when their customers are like, hey, we're not real happy with what you're doing. Like, for the release of the Xbox One, they were like, oh, there's no backwards compatibility, and if you buy a physical game, you have to download it to the console, and then you'll be able to play it. And immediately people were like, whoa. Why can't I just play the game off the disc like PlayStation or the Xbox before? Why are you making me take an extra step? And Microsoft went. They stepped back and said, okay, we reworked that. That's not how it's going to work now. They listened and were like, okay, we've changed it. It's not going to happen that way. We're good. It's like, okay. All right, they listened. Sony doesn't like to listen. But what I'm hoping is when Microsoft releases their next generation, and if the Project xCloud is ready to go and all the other stuff they have, maybe they'll tie it in together and be like, okay, if you want to play, the Project xCloud, all you got to do is get your Xbox Live Gold Pass, and it'll include access to the xCloud. Like, if you buy a lower tier, then you have to subscribe to... like, if you buy a lower tier of the Xbox Live, then, to add on the xCloud, it'll be like an extra, $5.99 a month or whatever, say. Yeah, but if they bundle that in and go, hey, for a full year of the Xbox Gold Pass with the Project xCloud, if they said, hey, it goes from $60 a year to $80 a year. Like, so you're telling me I can play all those games streaming. I can still play online with my friends, cross-console play with some titles, if Sony plays nice.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, okay, that's not bad. Like, right now, I think the only game I know of that's cross-platform between PC and Xbox And I think PlayStation and Switch is Minecraft. I
Yeah,
think that's the only
Minecraft
one.
is one of those.
Yeah,
I think
I'm not sure
Rocket
what other
League too,
games,
if I'm not
but
mistaken. I want to say Rocket League.
I
is one of those.
wouldn't be surprised because Rocket League is pretty big.
Yeah, and there might be. You know what? I think Fortnite is amongst those as well.
I think so. I'm surprised that GTA 5 never, because it still has a huge online community of players.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of fell off for a little bit, and then it's jumped back up when they started going, hey, here's more content, here's new missions, here's the casino, here's new heists. And what Rockstar does is they
definitely brought
release
everything
for
back.
free. And they release their DLC for free.
Yep. And they're still making a killing.
Yeah.
I think, if I heard correctly, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard that GTA is the #1 selling game of all time.
I believe it is. I believe you are right. I mean, so many people bought it for, Xbox 360 and PS3. And it wasn't out that long on those before the next generation of consoles hit. And I bought it for my PS4. That was the first game I got for the PS4.
Right.
And I know tons of people who had a 360, they got an Xbox One, they got it for their Xbox One. And then the PC gaming community, they got it and they're playing. It's like, it's huge.
Yeah. I'm somebody who bought GTA multiple times. I bought, and also this is a good chance for me to tell your audience that I'm not an Xbox fanboy. I did own a PS4. So, and I love the PS4 too. I love them both. I had them both. I'll probably get both of the next iterations of both, whatever. But anyways, I bought GTA 5 on PS3. I bought it on PS4. I bought it on Xbox One. Not only for myself, but for Devin as well on PS4 and Xbox One. Then I bought it on PC as well. So Rockstar has made, I've bought the game like 6 or 7 times over.
Yeah, I've bought it 3 times because I got the PS3 version, which actually I think was a gift from Leanne. And then she got me the PS4. And I traded in a bunch of the physical games I had for the PS3 to get GTA 5 for the PS4. And then just a few weeks ago, I bought GTA 5 for the PC. You know this because I was trying to play it and everything was off. The colors, and it was laggy. And we determined my graphics card just couldn't support it. We looked at the specs and... I mean, I can play it, but it's like my computer's... It's like trying to drive a car when all the cylinders aren't firing. Eventually, something's going to give out. So I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to push it. I'm not going to push it.
Yeah, it's just going to overwork your PC and overheat it and whatnot. But I think if we got you... Let me see. I think you only need like a GTX 570 or a 680. Let me see what those cost right now. Is it 680? Is that the...
I think it is, if I remember. I haven't looked at them for a while. I looked at them that day, and then I didn't look at them again. So I was like, oh man, something's like over $500. I don't have that right now.
Yeah, we probably have to get like a... Because the lower graphics cards are hard to find now. I think the lowest one you can get is the 1650, 1660, unless you find it on eBay or something, or maybe Amazon has some lower ones. Or maybe Amazon.
Maybe
Has some lower graphics. I mean, like just to get you going, you know what I mean? You can always upgrade again later if you wanted to play more, bigger games.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, eventually I'll probably... Excuse me. Hit my vape a little too hard there. Eventually I'll probably invest the money and either build my own PC or get one that has the specs that I want, not only for playing a few games here and there, but for the audio production that I do since I do the podcast and video editing down the line. But
yeah, graphics card will definitely come in right there.
yeah, because if I want to start recording, playing games, or like set up to be able to stream, some games every now and then if we're playing online together or whatnot,
Yeah.
Might be fun to stream some of those GTA 5 moments.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe late to the game, but who cares? Those are some of the videos I watch on YouTube, the GTA videos, just because people go on and they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna have some fun."
Yeah, and then you can do the cheats if you want. Do the mods.
Yeah, become a goose and fly a plane and.
Oh,
I think there was.
I don't know how long
when I saw back
played.
in the day. Mm-hmm.
They recently brought back the peyote plants in GTA Online.
Yeah, they're already gone.
Well, they were gone. They brought them back, then they took them away, and then brought them back. Did they take them away again for a second time?
They took them away sometime in April because I went on like the day after. I was like, man, I want to check out these peyote plants. And then I went online and started searching where the locations. They're like, you'll notice when you get near one, your controller will start vibrating. Like, okay, cool. Got to near where one was, nothing. Well, I looked it up online. They're like, oh, as of April 13th, they removed them from the game again. I was like, man, it's like you guys keep doing that, and I miss out every time. Because I think for a while they were only available within the PC online version, and then they put it to all the consoles across the board. I could be wrong here. I could be talking completely out of my ass. It's like, but then I looked. I'm like, oh, you took them away, and I was just gonna see if I could turn into like a dog or something, and it's like, oh, yeah. I didn't get the chance.
I haven't. Yeah, because I haven't looked for them recently, but I just messed around with them when they first brought them back.
I'm sure they'll bring them back again. Yeah, I'm sure they'll bring them back again. Probably sometime midsummer, they'll probably be like, "Hey, they're back." But they never really announced it. You just have to kind of know where to watch things in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea there was going to be these, the Gerald missions that came out recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I had no idea. Then you sent me a link. I'm like, where did these come from? When? And I read somewhere, they're like, hey, there's probably going to be another update to GTA 5, and it's probably going to be huge. Like, how much more can you guys do?
Yeah,
I mean, think about.
I like when they add the.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought I lost you.
No. I'm here. You were talking, so I was like trying to not talk over you again.
My bad. I like the sort of linear missions where you're not in public sessions and you can just kind of go about your business and enjoy the mission. So when they brought those missions out, I was stoked on that.
I definitely, for the most part, prefer going in and doing stuff on my own. Because a lot of times you get into a lobby and you just get people who have leveled up so high in the game. And they're just like, well, I'm just going to take my jet and blow everybody up. I don't care. I'm like, well, that's not fun for me. I'm trying to do stuff. So most of the time, if I go into a public lobby on the PS4 to play GTA Online, I'm immediately in passive mode.
Right.
Because I want to be able to walk around and figure out what I want to do, and then I'm in there for 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to stop playing for now.
Yeah. If you have to do too much in public lobbies and you don't have a full crew to play with, it's hard.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really hoping that next generation is all cross-platform, all the way around. Like, come on, the technology's there. Just let's do it already.
It really is. And it kind of sucked that Sony in the beginning, Microsoft was like, yeah, we're all for cross-console play. And Sony's like, well, no, we don't want to expose our fans to some inappropriate behavior. I'm like, have you ever gone online and listened to people that are playing online together in a public forum? Because there are 8-year-olds and they're cussing everybody out.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
But then they find that Sony kind of was like, oh, okay, we'll do some titles, but I think next gen it's got to be the majority of those AAA titles. Like when GTA 6 finally comes out, I'm hoping that Nintendo Switch will be able to support it. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping if people get it on Switch or Xbox, PC, PlayStation 5, that anyone that has it is able to play with each other. All you'd have to do is make it if you're on PC and you want to play with your friends on console, you're just not going to be able to use your cheats. Because you're going to be playing on the console version, so you can't screw with the game like you would with other PC players.
Yeah.
You can't enable the cheat to become Hulk Hogan and blow stuff up.
Yeah, but the only thing with that too, as far as going into PC, you always have that conflict of, supposedly the keyboard and mouse has an advantage. I can kind of see it because I only recently started playing GTA on the PC, so I can kind of see it, but I'm not well versed enough on PC to really see it, I guess, yet. Because I'm still kind of I struggle with it, Keyboard and mouse is a little bit of a struggle.
I don't think I'll ever be able to get
on
there.
For a little while.
Yeah, I think I'd have to always play with a controller. I don't think I could do the PC and mouse. Leanne's told me it's not as hard as I think it is, but as someone who grew up, every video game I ever played was a controller, save for playing Oregon Trail at school or any of those. That was a keyboard and mouse, but those were such simple controls.
Right.
I mean, Oregon Trail was basically a point and click.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it wasn't really
I can see people getting pissed, oh, the keyboard and mouse is better. It's like, well, then just get better with your controller. There's ways to do it. Hopefully, also with the next generation of games. And I know we're going over an hour and a half here, so we'll wrap up pretty soon. But
yeah, my bad. I think we got a little off track.
Hey, you know what? We got some nostalgia in, and we're just kind of talking video games in general. But one thing I want, what Xbox I think did right was release that Elite controller with the Xbox One. Customizable, you can replace the stuff, you can map it how you want. Mm-hmm. I think the next gen's going to have that kind of controllers readily available. Not be PlayStation has a couple and they're third party.
Yeah.
So they're we licensed it, but it's a third party. It's not us.
Exactly.
But you've been making video game consoles since the early 90s. Why can't you figure it out? Microsoft's got it.
Exactly. So, well, and if you've actually held the Elite controller in your hand before, it is a solid piece of machinery. It feels good in your hand.
I almost pulled the trick on buying one a few years ago, just to have it for PC. So I was like, well, I could use it for playing the, Nintendo games if I ever were to download an emulator without anyone getting in trouble for doing so. Right. Or be able to play it on Steam, because Microsoft Xbox Elite controller automatically syncs up with Windows 10. So I was like, oh, maybe for Steam games. But I didn't get it. So I was like, man, I don't know if I could pay almost $200 for it. I'm like,
I mean, at least I can tell you that it does indeed hook up directly with the Steam games. So when I hook up my controller to my computer, you don't have to map the buttons. It already knows what button does what. You can change the mapping if you like, but...
Yeah, when I used my PC controller, when we were playing not my PC, my PlayStation controller, when we were playing Human Fall Flat a few weeks ago, it was just giving me the Xbox buttons, but I knew exactly what they were talking about. It's still the same thing. It was just oh, hit Y. I'm like, oh, okay, well, Y is triangle. Okay, got it. So, it still works. It's just, it's made like, hey, we're optimizing for the Xbox controller because it is a Microsoft computer you're playing on, so.
Yep.
Or it's a Windows-based computer you're playing on.
Yeah.
It's technically
Microsoft
manufactured by Hewlett Packard, but
Microsoft operating system.
yeah.
No, but it's
You know what
cool
I was
because
getting at?
no, I sure did, and I feel like even though we got off track, I feel like it was more because of talking about the old games. It takes you back to that time where you didn't have to do the microtransactions and where you didn't have to worry about any DLC, and everything kind of like reminded us of what is going on in today's world a little bit. So so the fact that we got off track, it wasn't like terrible because we got to kind of compare and contrast how things were to how things are now. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And real quick, I don't know if you remember, it was a couple of years ago. There was that big ordeal over the microtransactions.
Yeah.
Every game, and EA was the biggest culprit.
Oh God, EA.
Just about every game that came out, they're like, hey, here's a $60 game, but if you want to be able to play this map, you got to download it. Or if you want to get these cool things, you got to buy these loot boxes.
Yeah. EA can be a podcast on its own.
I have no problem if they're like, hey, here's, special edition loot boxes or special edition downloadable content. It's going to cost you a few dollars, but it'll give you something in the game that you just can't get by grinding through.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. I get it
to a
point. But when everything is a microtransaction, I was like, no, you can't have everything cost me more money. I've already paid $60 for your goddamn game. You want me to pay another $60 in DLC just to be able to get the cool weapon or the cool skin? No. EA, screw off.
Yeah, and I think they were the first ones to start doing that, and it was with Madden. So, if you remember on the PS3, online was completely free. Xbox, Microsoft was charging $60 a year for quite some time before Sony got on that whole PSN annual, monthly, whatever.
Yep. And I remember how pissed people got.
Oh yeah, because I mean, what was once free and what is still free on PC to this day in that regard, something you have to pay for now. It's like, why? Why do you have to pay to play online? That doesn't make sense. It's not that big a deal. The technology has been there. It's not new technology, so what are we paying for? So they try to throw in the free games to make you feel better about it, but I go back and forth on that.
And honestly, I will say this, as far as the PlayStation Network and having to pay to play online, if that's all it was, I'd be like, okay, this is kind of bullshit. But I will say, I have probably got my money's worth out of the PlayStation Plus in just the free games I've downloaded alone. And I get it. If my PlayStation Plus lapses, I don't have access to those games anymore. But the second I re-up, they're still there.
Boom.
They're still in my library. They're just not they're not accessible if I don't have the PS Plus. So I got like Uncharted 4 and all these other games. I'm just like, you know what? Until Dawn. All these games that come out for free, if I want them, I just get them when they are available for free on PS Plus. And within a year's time, some people still complain. I'm like, well, I just got some top AAA titles for free. And sometimes they're the Game of the Year edition, or they have all the DLC bundled with it. So I'm like, okay, that game, when it was launched, like Uncharted 4, if you wanted the game, which was like $60 and then all the other add-ons for it, you're probably talking like $120 after getting everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the entire version now for free with all that stuff.
Yeah, I will say Sony definitely makes it worth it.
And Xbox has been doing the same. One thing I would like to see them do for the next gen, maybe you stop charging us to play online. Be like, hey, you can go online and play with your friends. If you guys have the game, you can play for free. Online play, it's free. Now, if you want access to these libraries, like the PS Now or the Xbox Game Pass, where you can stream, go like, okay, if you want those, that's what you're gonna pay for. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I can see that. I want to be able to stream those old school games. I'll pay you for that. I think Nintendo Switch, even though they don't have integrated voice chat into the Switch yet, I feel it's coming at some point. Even though they don't have that integrated in right now, their online is only $20 a year.
Right.
So you can play online, you get the Super Nintendo, you get the Nintendo.
For what you're getting is phenomenal.
Like, if you were to go out and try to buy those physical games for a Nintendo or Super Nintendo, some of those titles are hundreds of dollars themselves. So $20 a year for the Switch, and I still see people complaining. Like, well, we don't have N64, and there's no GameCube, and the voice chat is only through my phone. What the hell? I'm like, well, don't you? Most people use Discord anyway, so why even bother using the Nintendo voice chat through the app on your phone?
Yeah, and you can easily use Discord on your phone, Skype, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, recently, I don't know if you're on the app or not, but there's an app that's been like really popular lately called House Party, and
I've heard about it. I haven't downloaded it yet, but I saw that it really took off during this whole self-isolation quarantine thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, they're like, hey, it's Zoom, but it's cooler than Zoom because it's for the younger generation. Yeah. And they're like, we're not getting hacked like Zoom all the time. Like, yeah, Zoom's getting hacked all the time.
Man. Yeah, House Party has actually been around for a while. We got it a few years back, but it just never really took off. And then all of a sudden, my family was like, "Oh, get on House Party. Everyone's on House Party. We're doing House Party." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out because I keep seeing it come up. I'm like, okay, I might have to check this. Like, I saw a huge push a few weeks ago for it on the news. There were commercials, and they're like, "Do you want to talk to your friends while you can't be in the same place right now? Jump on House Party." I'm like, what? I was like, "What? House Party? What? Kid and play? What's going on?"
Classic.
Is this a pajama jammy jam? But yeah, I'll have to check out House Party. I might have to put it on my phone or see if I don't know if there's a PC version of it or not.
That's a good question. I don't even know if there is or not. There might be.
I think when I looked
Zoom,
it up,
right?
I think it's only mobile, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be.
Let's see. Oh, House Party. Group video chat with House Party on Chrome, so you can talk to your friends when you're not together.
Oh, there you go. It's on Chrome. Sweet.
Yeah, and I basically use... Oh, and then this, as of April 2nd, they're saying there's currently no dedicated Windows app for your laptop or desktop PC. Like, if you have a Chrome extension, maybe... I don't know. But then I'm so leery about adding Chrome extensions onto my browser. I normally don't enable any of them. I don't even have. I think WebRoot is the only browser extension I have running in the background, and that's just to make sure that I stay safe when I go online. Because WebRoot is by far the best thing I've ever bought for my PC to protect it.
Oh, 100%. I agree. I use WebRoot myself. It's been great. I've never had issue.
Yeah, I just re-upped not too long ago because it ran out. I was like, I need it. I can't do anything without it at this point. It's my saving grace.
Yeah. And it'll, sometimes it'll flag stuff that you know is good, and you're like, ooh. Even though, like, hey, you know what, I know this is good. It really bases it on the type of site that it is, and at least just lets you know, like, hey, this might not be too safe. You might want to think twice, and then you can reevaluate if you have to.
Which is smart, because sometimes you don't know. Something could have changed, or, they're like, hey, we're not really sure. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust your judgment on this one. Yeah. Exactly.
I'll go over to Reddit or something real quick. See if anything's like theory of the website.
Exactly. Well, this was fun. I definitely want to get together again and we can talk more.
Definitely.
Maybe we can.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface in some ways.
Oh yeah, because we could probably do a whole episode just talking about Nintendo games we used to play, or I could probably do a whole episode based on the day where I woke up at 2 a.m. playing Mega Man 2 before we went on vacation to Utah, and I beat the game like an hour before we were to leave.
There we go. Yeah, because we only got up to Super Nintendo, so we still have 64 GameCube.
Yeah, which I never had a 64. I had a GameCube for a blink of an eye with one game. I still have my Nintendo Wii. Still have my Wii. Never got a Wii U. But I had a PlayStation, a PS3. These are just what I owned. Greg had a PS4. I never played his PS4. Or PS2. Not PS4. PS2. Oh my god. See, I got them all running together now. Yeah, he had a PS2 and I had the Xbox, so he'd be like, well, the PS2's better. I'm like, what does it matter? They both do the same thing. We get to play video games. Who cares?
I just got a reminder of the South Park episode where they had that battle, the same battle.
I don't know. I have no brand loyalty. I'm like, I like the Switch. I like PlayStation. I like Xbox. I don't care. I like PC.
We like games.
It's funny because I will say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that's pretty much why I ended up getting both consoles this year, because up until now, I mean, I had PS1, 2, 3, and then this generation I ended up getting both. But I wanted to try all the first-party games and whatnot for both, you know?
Because each one has games that you can't get on the other. It's like, well, why am I going to be loyal to one brand over the other? Because at some point, every business does something that you're like, well, I don't agree with what they're doing there. That's kind of screwing us over. So you can't just have this blind loyalty. That's why I'm just across the board. And I'll be honest, I didn't think the Nintendo Switch was going to be a success. I thought they're going to crash and burn. They're going to screw it up like with the Wii U. And then I had multiple friends going, no, this is great. The Switch is so much fun. I can take it on the go. I can play it at home. The games are really good. And I got one. Leanne got me one as a present, and I haven't looked back. And then I got her the Switch Lite this past Christmas, and she's been playing that a lot.
Nice. It's good to hear.
Yeah. So it's fun. We got a couple of games that we can go on and play against each other, but we'll circle back to this. We'll talk some more about the old school games. We'll figure out how we can record us playing some old school games. I'll bring over once we get out of quarantine and we can get together, we can play in person. Maybe I'll bring my NES Mini over and.
It's a plan, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely, like I said, we'll definitely circle back. Because like you said, we've barely scratched the surface, and we can do another, almost 2 hours?
Easily.
But you know what? This was fun, just to sit down, talk about games. We had some nostalgia. We went off here and there, but when you're talking about something like this, it's hard not to talk about other things that were around at that same time. Because I used to play my Game Boy and listen to my Sony Walkman. It's just what I did. And there's going to be so many people who hear this. So many people are going to hear this and go, what the fuck are they talking about? What's a Walkman? Ask your parents. Ask your parents.
All right.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here for now. It was a lot of fun, man. Hey, this was fun, Eddie. I appreciate you coming on and doing this.
I've definitely had a great time.
We're going to do it again. We are definitely going to do it again. Because
thanks
why
for having
not?
me.
Because of course, anytime you got an open invitation to come back here to Skewered Universe, man. You're my brother. I've known you longer than anybody. I mean, aside from my parents. We grew up together. We were forged in these video games from a young age. It reminded earlier when you said, "Oh, I'm a gamer," and I'm like, "You're a gamer." I think we're gamers in this aspect of we grew up playing all these old games, and we just like playing games. We're not these like hardcore PC master race and like hours on end going through keyboards and controllers. And it's like I can't play 62 hours of Fortnite straight. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, I can't do that either. Definitely not.
Man, once you hit a certain age, it's like, you know what? I could spend maybe 4 hours playing a game. Then after that, it's like, maybe I want to watch a movie. Maybe I want to take a nap.
Yeah, it definitely, you look at things from a different aspect, and I feel like in some ways you tend to, and maybe it's just because when you're a kid, you just don't think about things too much. You just kind of go for it. I mean, I remember I used to pop in a game. I didn't read the instructions. I popped in a game and I went for it. Now I'm like, okay, what are the controls? I don't know how to get my gun out. I don't know how to do this. How do I get in the car? And you gotta I overthink stuff now. So it's a whole different mentality.
There's a learning curve. And I think maybe as kids, we were more adept to just picking it up and going. And now because it's advanced so much, kids now can pick up a controller. Yeah. Kids now can pick up a game and just do what we used to do. And it's like, okay. And I think sometimes you take for granted what you had as a kid, just being able to pick it up and play, and now you're like, well, how was I doing this before? And you're like, But I will say this. I cherish a lot more of the time when I can just sit down, throw in a game, and just play for a few hours and just kind of get lost. It's relaxing. Exactly. So, yeah, I think that'll do it for this time around, and we'll get back together again. Eddie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks again for having me, man.
You're the best person to have on for this discussion.
Love it. I love it. Good times.
Because not only do you remember the old school stuff, you have more insight than I do on some of the newer stuff coming out, because you've kept me in the know of some of the new stuff coming. So I appreciate that. Definitely. And like I said, you always got an open invitation to come back whenever.
Definitely be back. I'll definitely be back.
All right, man. It was good talking.
Alrighty. I'll see you later, bud.
See you later.
All right. Well, that was mine and Eddie's almost 2-hour discussion on video games. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was episode 20 of Skewered Universe, so we've hit a little bit of a threshold, a little bit of a milestone. We got 20 episodes in. And like we said, there's going to be a few more of these to come. We're going to get together and brainstorm some ideas for some other video game podcasts, because here in the Skewered Universe, it's movies, it's games, it's wrestling, it's whatever the fuck we want to talk about. Mainly just to bring you guys a little discussion, have a little fun, talk about whatever. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay happy if you can, and keep on enjoying that universe that is just the tiniest bit. Well, actually, it's a lot more than a tiny bit. Skewered.
Find the podcast at skewereduniversepodcast.podbean.com. It's also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. Search for Skewered Universe Podcast. Contact the show by emailing us at skewereduniversepodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @SkeweredU, Facebook as the Skewered Universe group page, and Instagram @Skewered_Universe.